Hello and welcome to episode 41 of Retro Recall the PS1 Chronicles, a show where we play and rank every PlayStation game ever created. My name is Jimmy, and as always, I'm here with Mike.
Hello.
And we have our two horror experts. Welcome, Kyle and Jay.
Hello.
I wanted to go first this time. Hey, Jay Dino, Julian Dinowitz, everyone's favorite character.
I'll let you go first next week.
All right, thanks. Because Kyle went first the past two times, and I just feel like it's kind of imbalanced. And you should kind of be overseeing that a little bit better as the podcast host, but it's fine.
Well, I mean, you two could just both go at the same time, then I can cut him, and then it'll only be you, so it'll be like you went first.
You sound hurt, Jay.
I don't even want him to think he has the privilege to speak first. That's what it is. I want you to talk with him ahead of time, because it's really starting to affect me emotionally.
I hope so.
Speaking of affecting us emotionally, what is your history with Silent Hill? Any of you? Any of you played any of them before?
I think I've only ever played the second one when I was like a kid, so pretty much no experience.
Yeah, never even got to play PT, which was that Silent Hill demo, which that's probably it's still the best horror game of all time. So me only watch stuff.
Yeah, I never played any of them. I watched the movie. That's about as much as I know.
I also watched the movie. I think there's two movies. I think I saw the second of the two, so I didn't even see the first. I probably got the worst Silent Hill experience of all time. I've only seen the second movie.
Second movie's trash. First movie's really good.
Yeah, the second one is so bad.
They're making a new one too, coming out soon, I think.
Really?
Yeah, the new movie's based on Silent Hill 2, which is the best game. So me and Mike, actually, we were planning on doing a whole Silent Hill retrospective like 10 years ago now.
Yep.
Our old friend, he came over and he played all of them while we kind of just helped him, and we were doing it all as a group. So we've seen these full games, 1 through 3. We've seen the whole games, but we never actually played it. And you guys already know how me and Mike feel about horror games. So
I think if I remember correctly with those, you and I gave it a shot for about 5 minutes, and then we passed over the controls back to him.
Yeah.
Well, what is it? I actually don't know how you guys are with horror games. Or maybe I do know and I forgot because I'm a bad friend.
We just don't like them.
They're scared.
Yeah, I'm scared.
That's so funny, man. It's so low quality. I don't know if you guys want to start there, but I'm wildly curious if this game scared you.
Well, I mean, I will say the low qualityness kind of adds its own sense of scariness.
That's what I was going to say. Without actually talking about the game yet, I wanted to bring this up. Obviously, I can watch horror movies just fine. I've seen so many horror movies. And that's not the same thing to me. Playing a game is so different.
Huh.
But specifically, 90s horror games, even the shittier they are, to me, it's almost like the scarier they are. Especially the old PC games, the way they look, it's so just fucked up looking and not correct. To me, that's scarier. Sure, Outlast is scary, right? Because you're being chased and stuff. But to me, this is scarier than that because of, I don't know, just the way that it looks and the way that it feels to me is just way more disturbing, I guess would be the right word.
I agree with you 100%. I totally get what you mean.
I think it's that uncanny valley effect. It's it's close to trying to look like something real, but because just the where the technology was at the time didn't allow it to be I don't know, that thing didn't look like a person or whatever. It makes it almost scarier because when I was, for example, again, we won't get too far into the game, but you guys know that mob that's creeping around the hospital. And that thing looks fucking terrifying. And it's because, for the most part, I can't really make out what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, I get what you're talking about. It's the mystery. And same thing with, and again, we'll get into this, but the controls and everything, the age of this game, I think, adds to the fear factor.
And I'm the same way with horror movies and video games. I can watch horror movies all day long. I'm fine. When it comes to games, fuck that. And people were always confused by it. And I think I finally figured out why. And you might be in the same boat, Jimmy. With movies, it's like a roller coaster. You're strapped in. You're just along for the ride. But whenever it comes to the game, you're now in control. So you have to make decisions. And I think that's what adds to the horror part of it.
Oh, absolutely agree. Yeah, I mean, when you're in control, this game has some jump scares, and they got me good.
Oh, yeah.
Really? Wow, okay. I'm curious to hear more about those when we get there.
Well, one last thing before we get into the game. I do want to say I am a huge fan of Silent Hill in general because of specifically the music and the vibes.
Yes, dude.
I've been ripping off the Silent Hill soundtrack for the entirety of the band. For every band I've ever been in, I've been trying to rip off this shit.
Totally sense that.
I mean, I love the atmosphere. I love the music choices, like the melancholy vibe of it. It's like, it's all exactly what I look for in horror, where it's like just kind of sad and dark, not like, ooh, a spooky zombie. It's like, this is like fucked up. Like, what's going on here? That's why I always gravitated towards it. But
it's kind of like closer for us too, because Silent Hill was inspired based on an area very close to where you guys are.
Yeah, wait, what's the backstory there? I've never...
Yeah, so there's a town called Centralia, and I might get this wrong, but underground caught on fire, like in the mines, and the ground has literally been on fire ever since then, and everyone had to evacuate. And because of that, that was the inspiration behind like the Silent Hill games and the concept of it.
No fucking way. That's real? You telling me it's on fire now?
yeah, you can't go there anymore. They blocked it off. It's like a ghost town, and it's like filled with smoke. And there's a very famous picture, like the road to it. They cleaned it up now, so you can't see it anymore, but it was filled with graffiti everywhere. You might have seen that online somewhere, but
I don't know. That sounds wicked, though. I gotta look that up after.
yeah, dude, you should. But with that, let's go ahead and hop into this game. Silent Hill was released on February 24th, 1999. It was developed by Team Silent and published by Konami. And this is a survival horror game in every sense of the word.
Yep. So starting off immediately, I got to say the opening cinematics, I don't know if you guys agree, but just in the cinematics, I don't want to apply this to the rest of the game, but it is the smoothest animations of characters I think we've ever seen. Like the way they move is so natural looking, and like they actually put a ton of time into these animations. And I was like, oh wow, I think it's because of all the bad things we've seen lately.
Yeah, and by we've ever seen, you mean like of all the games we've played on this show so far.
Exactly. Tekken, Soul of the Samurai, like the cinematics are so bad and so non-human looking that this one, you can tell they put a little bit more time into, and I really appreciate that.
So you're talking about the pre-recorded cutscenes, like in the beginning.
Yeah.
I agree. I haven't played as many PS1 games as you guys, obviously, and so I'm not sure what else it's really up against, especially in terms of cutscenes. But I mean, we did just play a game that was all cutscenes, which was D, and that was terrible. I'm not sure if that's a fair comparison, but anyways, I guess it shows kind of the range that the PS1 titles can have, and yeah, it was a lot nicer. And then I'll also say that all the in-game animations for like the characters and the monsters, those also looked really smooth. And yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about the handling of the game later, but the way it looked when you were handling it was good. The motor skills of the characters visually looked good.
I think my only complaint, and this is definitely just like an of the time thing, but when you have those like cutscenes where they're like talking, like when you first get to like whatever that cafe is and you're talking to that chick, the way their faces warble around and stuff is like so fucking funny, dude. Like, and it's like, why does it just keep moving?
It's the PS1 for you right there. You should have seen when we played Tomb Raider. The walls all do that.
Oh, dude, I would be sick.
But no, I think the graphics are great. This kind of look has been copied as recently as now for like these like retro horror games. Like this is still going. So I've always liked the way this looked. To me, it's all coming together to create this very specific vibe. And like, the fog was created because they couldn't show the whole town at once.
Yeah.
It wasn't a part of the story, but they made it work and they made it look so good. Because like, we haven't played it for the show yet, but there's this game, Spider-Man. Any of you ever played Spider-Man for PS1?
No.
Yeah.
Heard of it.
The whole game takes place on skyscrapers because they couldn't really get the whole street. So the whole ground is fog, and they're like, oh, Doc Ock filled the streets with fog. That's why it looks like that. And like, shitty excuse. With this one, at least it adds to the horror. I think without the fog, takes away a lot. Like if they remade this game and got rid of the fog, it would ruin it.
Oh, of course. And like we complained about in Magic Carpet with the draw distance and how it hurt the game so much. Quite the opposite on this is like, it's even more of a shallow draw distance than that game, but it helps it so much more, add more suspense every time you take a step anywhere.
Yeah, I think that's what sets this game apart. where other games would have things like that be its weakness. For this game, having enclosed spaces, so small environments, low draw distance that's, surrounded by like fog, and also probably like we were talking about the soundtrack and stuff already, but like a limited library of sounds, I would say. All those things are limitations of the technology, but they add to the game. And so I think it's going to be like more of a pattern as we talk about it more. But yeah, same thing. And also the handling of the character, the handling of the camera, which I didn't realize you can control really well later on. Kyle gave me a tip that you just hold down a button, you can control the camera. But for a while,
What?
I was fighting that camera. Yeah, you didn't know that? You could hold down a button.
If you hold L2, that like you can control the camera.
I was like running like facing the camera, like you're looking at yourself, just sprinting forward through hallways, getting attacked by those like children or those nurses. And Kyle, if it weren't for Kyle, I would have been doing that for like an extra 3 hours more than I needed to. But yeah, you didn't know that?
I'm a little bit mad now that I did not know this because I spent most of the time running at the camera and not knowing what was in front of me.
That's hysterical.
Yeah, I don't know how you would play the game like that. I don't know.
I was just gonna say that this game is like a perfect example of like taking your limitations and just doing the best with what you can do with that. Because it's like, yeah, like we said, like the draw distance is really shallow, but like that fog just adds so much more suspense and makes things scary. And it's like they just use that to their advantage, and I think that's really smart.
Yeah, I think it's a thing where a lot of these other companies, they have these limitations, like with the draw distance or something, but they still try to do more than what they actually can. And that's why it hurts them when these people just embrace it and they built around those limitations, which is pretty much what Jay was saying.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of limitations, though, I do think the game is framey for sure. At certain points, like you definitely feel the frame rate struggling.
Oh, for sure. There are definitely frame drops in certain areas, like where there's a lot going on. But I mean, overall, I feel like it was a pretty smooth experience. But even like with those areas that were like frame droppy, I kind of like give a little leeway on that just because like I understand there were, limitations to the console and whatnot. And like, it's got to be hard to, work with as much as they had at that time. I don't know what the exact specifics are, but I know it wasn't a lot.
No, I mean, it's definitely not like as bad as some of the other games we played. There's definitely some games where, like, I mean, we played Star Wars Dark Forces and it literally made me sick because the frames never even hit 20.
Wow, that's disgusting.
That's bad.
Overall, this game is great. I just, that was the only real complaint I had for the way the game runs, the way it looks, like anything. Like, other than that, I have nothing bad to say about it.
I, like, notoriously hate games with tank controls. Like, any game that we've played with tank controls that I've talked about, I'm always like, yeah, I fucking hate this. But, like, out of all the games I've played, I think this feels the smoothest. Like the camera did feel a little wonky at first, but like once you kind of settle into everything, like it feels very smooth. And that was honestly a surprise for me. Like, cause like I said, playing like games like Metal Gear Solid where like the controls, like I fucking hate shooting in that game so much. But this is like, and you do get the help that when you like, aim your gun, it auto locks you to the closest enemy. Like, that's nice because otherwise it would be a bit of a struggle.
Game would be unplayable if it did that.
Oh, absolutely. So it's nice that they added that, but it's just like I said, like a lot of games I play with tank controls just don't come close to feeling as smooth and as nice as this game did. I never really found a time where I was like overrunning or overturning. Like, I was able to get straight to where I needed to go with like no issue.
You're a superior gamer to me then, because I was like overrunning and overturning a ton. I kept getting fucked over by enemy spawns, but it still was a really smooth experience as far as tank controls is concerned. Well, for the PS1, because like also if I compare it to like Resident Evil 4 tank controls, the one from the 2000s, then it's not as good. But those are more developed tank controls. So yeah, Silent Hill, the tank controls are probably the best you're going to get on PS1. What about Dino Crisis? Was that tank controls as well? Because you guys played that game together.
Yeah, those for me were a little rough. I mean, I got used to it after a while, but like Silent Hill, like after I ran around for a little bit, I settled in. With Dino Crisis, it was like, it wasn't, like maybe 10, 15 minutes until I really started to like kind of get a hang of things, but I still found myself like overturning or overrunning.
Yeah, once you get the camera down, it's a lot better in Silent Hill. That's the one thing I will say. I didn't realize the camera was something you can control until you helped me out, and after that, I stopped overrunning and overturning a lot. So,
and speaking of like the camera and stuff, like one thing I did want to point out is that as far as I know, there weren't like a whole lot of games at the time that did that like third person like perspective behind your character. I could be wrong, but like even if there are, for the ones that I did play, they don't look as good or as smooth as this game does. Like this game definitely was like at the top for that. I don't know. I was really impressed with how well things handled, how well things looked, like how, most of the game, like when you're running outside, it's like, the camera's behind you, but then it's like once you get into like the school and like, enclosed areas, they have some fixed kind of camera angles, but then it kind of follows you and stuff. I just really liked how that worked in the game.
Yeah, I think it's also important to remember this is a late PS1 game too. Like, I don't know, Dino Crisis came out around this same time too, so it makes sense that these are the best of the best as far as like PS1 tank controls. To go even farther, I'd honestly like say I am not bothered by tank controls anymore. I think when we first started doing this show, it bothered me, but at this point, I can see kind of what they're going for with it because it definitely enhances it for horror games. It really makes you a little more scared because you're not in full control. Like if I had full 100% control, I could shoot any time in this game, it would definitely kill a lot of the horror. I mean, same thing with like Resident Evil 4 and like any of the other ones. Like they do that on purpose to make you feel like flustered and like you don't know what you're doing, because if you had, modern controls, I think it would be a lot easier to get around for sure.
I will say, like, speaking of like, the shooting stuff, like I did never really feel like an immediate sense of danger with the enemies. I felt like they were all pretty easy to take down. Like, yeah, the dogs did get annoying. When you're in like the school and you have like, the little kids and the bugs, and even when you get to the hospital with the nurses and stuff, like they were so easy to take down or even just run past. It really wasn't difficult. I guess that was kind of a con for me, is that like, yeah, the game was definitely scary. The atmosphere, I love that. Love how, I did feel scared at points, but I never felt like, oh, I'm going to die. Like I never felt, even when I fought that one boss, like the thing that like opens its mouth and stuff, like I killed that on like my first try.
Yeah, it's split jaw boss. I didn't take a lick of damage from. It was a pretty like I did kind of cruise through the enemies, because even when I did get like when one of the kids would knife me or something, like it barely took down any health, and then I just popped, like there was plenty of health lying around. There were so many items that I never found myself like fully dying unless I was just like, all right, I fucked up. Let me, die so I can I can go back to the main menu and hit continue. So I kind of cruised through the difficulty.
Did you play on easy or did you play on normal?
I must have played on normal. I don't remember picking an option, but I must have picked normal. I would never pick easy. So
I picked easy, so.
Oh, I never pick easy. I always pick normal or harder just because, I don't know.
Horror games, I pick easy.
Oh, okay.
What'd you pick, Mike?
I was on easy. Not being a fan of horror games, I'm like, I'm not gonna deal with the normal mode.
The only things I really noticed with easy is like the enemies go down way faster, and I had so much ammo. Like at certain points, I had over 200 handgun bullets.
What? Okay,
Holy
I only have
shit.
like 14 at a time, but I never ran out.
Like I was playing on normal, and like I would find times where I'd have like 40 or 50 extra bullets or something like that, but 200?
Yeah, it's nuts.
I only used my gun in like real like emergency cases. Like, okay, I walked into a room and there's like 3 enemies and like I don't have any healing items, so I don't want to take a bunch of damage. Then I would pull my gun out and use it then. But otherwise I relied on the pipe. And then when I got the fucking hammer, dude, it was game over.
Yeah, so even on normal mode, there was hella ammo. So, I mean, you're saying you used your sparingly. I didn't, but it didn't really matter either way, and the enemies went down easy. As soon as I got the hammer too, I was just on that shit. That hammer's fun as fuck. I will say, like, the combat, this game is old, but the combat's satisfying, right? Like, that's that's wild. This game is, I mean, you see its age, it wears it on its sleeve. But it's like a compliment to the game. Like it still holds up today, I think. So for like reasons like that, you know what I mean?
Well, just to get into the easy mode a little more, just to fully explain, I think the only things are there's more ammo and healing items, and the enemies are way easier to kill. So I never had a moment in the game where I had less than 10 healing potions and like over 5 first aid kits.
Wow.
I was never taking damage and I was running around as many enemies as I could. So like at one point I had like 90 shotgun shells.
Jesus Christ, dude, that's crazy.
I didn't use my shotgun at all, but yeah.
I only used the shotgun for the boss and for the hospital because with the handgun, even on easy, the nurses still took like 6 bullets, but with the shotgun it was only 2. And I already had like fucking 80 or 90, so I'm like, yeah, all right.
I think the nurses took like 4 swings of the hammer, honestly. That hammer might just be strong as fuck.
Dude, the hammer's so OP.
Yeah, and it's satisfying. So, yeah.
I don't know. I tried the melee combat with the pipe for a little bit, and then I was like, you know what? I don't know. I think I would have had to gotten used to it for a little bit because there is a timing aspect to it. You can't just swing wildly. And I had so much ammo. I'm like, who fucking cares? Like, I'll just shoot them.
So does the pipe actually break in the game? It says it's meant for limited time use or something. Reading that, I was like, so does this break? So I was like trying to be careful with it.
I don't think it's that deep.
Yeah, I think it just means like you're gonna start using a gun or you're gonna get a hammer or something or a knife. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. There's just so many points where there's like 2 or 3 enemies, like you have to shoot them. Especially like in the hospital, there's rooms where there's like 3 or 4 nurses. I'm like, man, I can't even imagine just using the hammer for this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Wait, so did you get the hammer? How far did we go over how far we all got?
No. So I played about 3 hours and I beat the scary version of the hospital. And that's where I stopped.
I did 3 hours and I just finished up the school. So I don't know. I even told Jimmy, I don't know how he zoomed by the school so fast, but my 3 hours, I just finished the school, beat the boss, and was on my way to the church. And that's where I made it.
So Jim and I ended pretty much at the same spot. I beat the scary hospital. And the last thing I did was I talked to that Lisa chick.
Yeah.
There's like a cutscene where you're like talking to her. And that's where I stopped. And I think my total playtime was like 322 or something like that.
My total playtime was really long because I really tried to figure out these puzzles for myself. And like, I think 2 of them I couldn't figure it out for myself.
Yeah, I do want to say I used a walkthrough from the beginning. Like, I am not playing around with this game. Like, literally from the beginning.
I tried to avoid it, but I wound up popping it open, I think, twice. So
I only used the walkthrough twice as well. I had to use it on the fucking piano puzzle because what is that? Like, that was hard. And then there was a key, like when you need the 3 keys to open that one door to go through the backyard. I was missing one of the keys and I kept going back over like where I, had looked and couldn't find it. So I pulled out the guide for that. I was like, oh, it's this alleyway that has the red line in it on the map that I've been through a million times. I just wasn't looking hard enough.
I played about 6 hours and I also got stumped on that piano puzzle. And that's what I whipped out the walkthrough for. But I waited so long. Like I tried to figure it out. I had pen and paper. I was writing down all the details. I couldn't fucking figure out the puzzle for the piano puzzle.
Now, it's not just me though, right? Like that was the most vague puzzle in the world for any game, right?
I mean, that puzzle is like notorious.
Oh, is it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, we all had to look that up, I'm assuming.
I don't know how any kid can play this game and be like, oh, yeah, I know what to do. Like, how would anyone get past that point?
I think that's the biggest con for me, honestly, is like the puzzles are very convoluted. Knowing them in hindsight and looking at a guide, sure, like, yeah, all right, I know what it is, but I would have never figured out some of this shit on my own.
Honestly, the piano puzzle was the only one. Like any other thing I had to do in the game, like when you have to, like, for example, it's not really a puzzle, but like when you have to like dump that chemical on the hand to get it to open, or when you have to put the alcohol and use the lighter on the vines, like all that stuff, I was just like, oh yeah, I have this thing. Like it all felt like, it was easy to figure out, like all the answers were there. But dude, that fucking piano puzzle, that was abysmal.
Yeah, also agreed. I thought the piano puzzle was way too hard, but everything else was kind of like obvious. Like, actually, yeah, it was a little too easy even. I was a little frustrated at sometimes because I felt like the game wasn't challenging me, but then there were random power spikes, like in difficulty, with stuff like the doghouse too. Like I had to look that part up. And I think I even had to look up the blood pack. But
see, I was reading about the game a bit before I played it, and I remember seeing someone say something like, "Oh, I had looked for 30 minutes before I could find the doghouse." And I remember I was just like running down that street before I even like had to find it, and I was like, "Oh, this is a doghouse." And I like tried to look in it, and it doesn't do anything until you trigger that part. And I was like, "Oh, there must be another one." And then I hit that part in the game, and I went back, and then you find that key, and I was like, "That's it? This is the doghouse that people have a hard time finding?"
Well, I think the thing with this game is, and I followed a walkthrough that told me exactly what rooms to go into, but like I said, me and Mike watched someone play this without a guide at all, and most of this game boils down to just exploring and checking every fucking door in every place. In the school, in the hospital, like obviously I knew where to go, but if I didn't, just walking through systematically checking every single door is like how people play this game. It's how all of them are, but I don't know. I don't really like that. I don't like that most of the doors are locked. It's like, oh, find the right door to find the thing. You know what I mean?
I think that was one of my biggest complaints about this game is it's like the formula is very much the same for all the areas you go to. It's like, okay, you get to the school. It's a normal school. You go through it. All of a sudden it turns into spooky school. And then you do the same thing. You try every fucking door, go into every room, look at everything. You get to the hospital. Hospital's all normal. You're doing your thing there, going through every door. All of a sudden, it's a spooky hospital when you go in that elevator, and then you do the same thing, go through blah, blah, blah. Like, it just kind of felt redundant after a while.
I will say one thing I remember from the end of the game is the final like dungeon of this game is, I don't remember what the area is, but it's basically the same as the rest of the game, right? There's doors everywhere to check, but the way it works is you don't have a map and the doors randomly teleport you to other hallways. So I remember when we were watching this person play it, we had to literally take notes. And eventually I think we did end up looking at a walkthrough, but it was just so convoluted and so just like not fun. I don't know. Obviously we can't really take that into account here because we didn't get there. But I did want to say, I think those aspects get worse as the game goes on.
yeah, one thing I will say about the game, like Kyle said, redundant, it's a little monotonous, but with each, kind of like achievement within, completing this puzzle or finding that item, the payoff is always good. Like I always felt fulfilled. Like, all right, I guess it was worth going into those 10 rooms and kind of wasting my time. You know what I mean? But it kept me on the hook. But yeah, the gameplay definitely, at least by today's standards, it doesn't really hold up. And then also the fact that you're going through doors and then you're experiencing load times, which were quick, still it's sort of like it breaks up the game. It breaks up the pace. It makes it feel a little like more jarring. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So the biggest positive for this game for me is like the story and the vibes. Obviously we can get into that at some point, but the story is very interesting and I definitely want to see it through as I go. Like to me, the gameplay is actually playing it is fine, but what you're actually doing is whatever. But the story is so interesting. And I know that this is inspired by Twin Peaks as well, which is like my favorite show ever. So it just really makes you want to keep playing just to see what the hell's going on in this town.
Yeah, I think they really nail the atmosphere a lot in this game. Like, obviously, me not liking horror games, I was stressed instantly. Like, getting into it and like not being able to see in front of me, I was stressed out. And then in that beginning intro part, whenever things are getting darker and then you hear the siren in the background, I'm like, my heart rate's going up and I don't want to play this game anymore. And I'm only 6 minutes into the game. And I'm like, this is going to be a nightmare. I just think they do such a good job building that tension. Like in most horror games, it's like, oh, you're going, oh, now there's tension. I feel like with this game, there's tension nonstop. And the only time you get a break from that tension is cutscenes, and that's it.
Or a save room.
Yeah.
I kind of forget, but how did the both of you feel playing D? Because that was supposed to be like a scary game, but not really supposed to be.
I liked the quote unquote tension they were going for. And I can definitely see how it would have been creepy at the time, but obviously I wasn't scared by it.
Yeah, there was nothing for me that was scary in that game. Like I said, I scared myself once because of the mirror that I looked into and I saw a person standing there and it freaked me out, but that's it.
So Silent Hill is like a special case. Like it's not just like, it's not just like you guys are trying to just scare. Because I thought this game honestly wasn't that scary, but also, I mean, it was. I honestly have to say, like the times that it was the scariest was when like you know, there was always music when enemies were present, so I knew what to expect. I wasn't that scared of them. It was when there was no music and there was complete silence that I was like, when is something going to pop out? You know what I mean? And there were a couple jump scare moments, but I liked them. Even like the cat jumping out of the locker was like, you know, kind of like meant to be a jump scare, but it was really amusing.
There were some parts in the game where there would be like some kind of shift in the music where it's like got extra scary, and I'm like, oh, something's going to happen in this room. And then there was no enemy or anything like that. I found that a few times throughout the game, and that kind of like, I don't want to say it took me out of it, but it was kind of like I was getting geared up for something scary to happen, and then nothing scary happened. And I mean, that's just like, as an example, that's how I felt the whole time I played D, where it was just like nothing ever happened. It was just like, oh, something, you know, there's just like this build up, but then nothing happened. So it was like when I had those moments in this game, I was kind of like, oh, like nothing scary in here. It's just spooky to be spooky.
Well, let me try to explain best why this game is scary to me. So we don't like horror games. We said that already, but specifically with this game, I think the things that make it scarier, one, like we said, the atmosphere, you know, like you said, Kyle, the scary noises, especially in the hospital, it just creates a tension of like, when is shit going to hit? Like, when is it going to happen? In the hospital, it really never quite does. I was actually surprised there was no boss there, but I think the game does the thing where you hear a noise when there's an enemy, you know, especially when you're out in the world, you hear the noise going and you're like, where is it? You know, when is it going to come and get me? That to me is the scary part. For example, you're trying to find a key, you're trying to find something, you're trying to just figure out where to go, and you just hear that noise and you're like, God damn it, where is it? And the enemies don't chase you super far other than the flying ones, but that is, I don't know, it's annoying. But I don't know, the scariness of it is just not knowing what's there, and I guess the fear of being jump scared, you know? Because I personally hate jump scares. Like, I think they work in this game because they happen so just very rarely. But like, even when I'm watching horror movies, like I don't watch the ones with jump scares because I just think it's cheap. Like, yeah, it scared me, it made me jump, but that's not true horror to me.
Exactly. And going off of what Jay was talking about earlier, where he was talking about the silence being the scariest part. For me, the silence was the most calming part, because when I didn't hear my radio going, I'm like, cool, I'm in the clear. I have nothing to worry about going forward. It's not until I heard the static from the radio going off where I started to panic.
So did the static from the radio mean there's like an enemy nearby? Is that what that was?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was always wondering, like, I knew that sound like meant some kind of danger, but like when I picked up the radio like in the beginning of the game, and like as I was going through, I'm like, when am I going to use this thing? I didn't realize that that's where that sound was coming from.
Yeah. So that's why, and if you go into a room and you don't hear your static, you're like, cool, I'm safe. I can run around and explore as much as I want. And it was calming to not hear anything to me.
Yeah, and then, you know, towards pretty much the end of each dungeon, like you can really, they just ramp up the whatever random noises are going on. Like there's a room in the hospital you go into and there's just glass shattering. I don't know if you guys found that room.
Yeah, that scared the shit out of me.
Me too. I was like, what the fuck's in here? And there was nothing in there. It's just a scary room.
And then they have the thing in the school where your radio goes off, but you just have those tiny spirits that they don't actually do anything to you. So it's like a false positive.
Oh yeah, the little goblins. They're like, what? Aren't they making like a weird noise?
The little squeaks, yeah.
They're like, yeah, they're squeaking. Why are they squeaking?
I mean, they're supposed to be dead babies, so.
And what's the squeak though? Dead babies squeak? Or alive babies squeak?
Babies make those kind of noises. Have you ever been around a baby before?
I forget the noise, to be honest. I've been around a baby before. I think I was one once, so I'm going to have to just kind of see if I can kick my memory into gear on that one. No, but yeah, honestly, it was elements like that. It was like the atmosphere of the game being the main fear point that made this game feel kind of like an edgier version of like a Twilight Zone episode. It wasn't like gory, it wasn't graphic, it wasn't violent. It was a little graphic. I mean, there was a lot of blood, but that's about it. I mean, you never saw someone like get their like head chopped off or something crazy like that. So it was very focused on like building an atmosphere.
I mean, the Twilight Zone comparison to me is exactly why I love it. Like, I love that kind of stuff, you know?
Me too. Especially when you like, remember the elevator? I think it was like, there's no floor 4 until you got on the 3rd floor. right? Something weird like that. I remember there was a Twilight episode like that, where there was no like top floor, but they went to it anyways. They went to like the 11th floor and it never existed.
Yeah, it's the same thing with the basement. Like you go down there and there's no map because it doesn't exist. It's like the second basement.
Oh, through the vent?
Yeah, there's like no map or anything because it's like, I'm pretty sure same thing with the 4th floor because you can't go back to it once you leave it. I think they're trying to say that this place doesn't actually exist. It's just part of like the nightmare scenario, you know?
I was just getting there. I had discovered the vines. I knew the lighter would light it on fire, but I hadn't gotten the alcohol yet, I think is what Kyle said. So, yeah, I just missed that. That's crazy, though. Yeah, that's the thing. This game is kind of like a mind fuck, just like Twilight Zone. It's focused on atmosphere and like building tension.
Yeah, I think that's why I've always gravitated towards this series, even though I don't even play them. I still like what it is. We'll get into this at some point, but I've never played a Resident Evil game other than like a tiny bit of a couple of them because I don't like traditional horror games that much, but I like this because it's just so fucking weird and it just, I don't know, the atmosphere is just so interesting to me.
Now, one question I had, I don't know if there is an answer to this, but in the school, when you first get in there, I think, on the 2nd floor men's bathroom, when you go into there, there's a lady crying or something. Is there anything more to that? Because I walked in there, I heard the crying, and I turned around and walked right out. I did not even explore.
I think it's just like the other stuff I was talking about, where like there's the room with glass breaking. It's just there to scare you. Like it's just there to build attention, which it does.
It worked. I left immediately and never went back. So I don't know what was in that room.
Yeah, no, it's like those little touches, dude. Like those little tiny things that don't have any gameplay purpose. They're just there to make you scared.
This game did have a sense of randomness to it, and I'm sure it all ties into the story, which I didn't see the game through all the way, so I don't really know. Like, that sense of randomness sometimes made it scary. Other times made it, I think, like, made it feel stupid. Like, do you remember the cutscene when you get to the hospital, the guy with the briefcase? And he's just like, well, see you later. Good luck. Like, he literally says, good luck out there. It's like, where are you going? It's like, what are you going to do? Why aren't we teaming up? Where's your sense of, like, urgency or panic? It's like he didn't give a fuck. He was very chill. So I don't know. It was things like that also kind of took me out of the game momentarily, made me laugh. But I fully expected kind of some like novel PS1 moments like that as well. So
well, yeah, all these people are just like, all right, anyway, see you later. Like I'm just gonna go die, I guess. I don't know.
I think it's important to note that this game is notorious for the terrible voice acting and the terrible dialogue that they have to even voice act to. Like last week, we were like laughing about how Castlevania had bad voice acting. This takes the cake for the worst voice acting.
I don't know. I like it for the same reason I like Castlevania, where it's so campy and dumb. It's like, it's like a B movie or something. It's like they got random people. I know they didn't, but it just sounds like that.
I get that, but at the same time, it takes me out of it more. Like you have this huge, like all this atmosphere and all this tension, but then these people talk and you're like, what the hell is this? Like, this is comical. It doesn't fit with the horror aspect of it.
Well, I'll bring it back just to even say, I assume you've never seen Twin Peaks.
No.
But that's why I love that show too. It's got the horror elements, but the dialogue is so stupid sometimes. Like they're just saying random shit.
Yeah. I mean, the Red Room, like anything that was said. I know like there's a band called An Albatross that sampled it. It sounds so funny. It just sounds like a little like a goblin talking, like I don't know. Mm-hmm. But the dialogue that like transpires in that show and the way like the voice acting is executed in this game, I see the similarities. I don't know if that's on purpose, but I see the similarities. But there were also moments that this game was like, like it was like kind of hard. Like there were some like hard samples in there. I got some ideas. I wrote some stuff down. Remember when Cheryl calls and I forget what she says, but she's like, Dad, is that you or something? Something like that. And I was just like, whatever it was, I was like, clip that. I need to use that in a song before I break down or something. Like, I don't know.
I just love how he's like, what's going on here?
Where am I?
And then like every single person he asks, he's like, have you seen a 6-year-old girl? And they all interact, like they all respond to him in a way that a normal person would. And they're like, what do you mean? Like, she's probably dead, dude. Have you seen outside?
Dude, that shit was crazy when they're like, yeah, she's probably dead. And he's like, I'm looking for my daughter. Have you seen her? Yeah, she's probably dead, dude.
And then the guy just goes, I mean, sorry.
Like, well, even the people that don't react like that, they're like, no. But have you seen what's going on outside? He's like, all right, bye. I don't know. I love it for that. I think it's just so dumb, but it works.
I get that.
Yeah, these PS1 games should get novelty points. I don't think they should be reasons to subtract from their score. It also is a game that was probably first. I'm gonna guess it wasn't recorded in English first, right?
Probably not.
I don't know. It's Konami, right? Is that Japan? So, anyways,
This is definitely a Japanese game.
yeah. So what they would consider like, I don't know, the video game equivalent of like a dub or something, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I still think that the game, it doesn't hurt the game that voice acting is in there, but it is like, funny, and it does kind of take you out. But the game is so good at being scary that I don't mind being taken out. In fact, I like things that are scary but can kind of switch it up at the same time. It lets your guard down for a second, if anything, and then you can get scared again real easily, which is what I like to get from these games. I like to be scared.
Yeah, I mean, you also know whenever you're in a cutscene, like Mike said earlier, you're safe. And even after the cutscene, you're always safe for a little bit. Like, I don't know if that changes, but you never feel like you're in immediate danger.
Right. It's always just like right behind you. It's always just like looming behind you.
I will say, I constantly checked the map in this game, like non-fucking stop.
Oh, dude, I was hitting triangle so much.
Yeah, my triangle button's almost stuck.
I think this is just like a coping mechanism for me with horror games. I just keep checking the map. I keep checking my inventory for no reason. Like, I don't know. Every time I'm like, all right, where am I going now? Check the map, walk fucking through one room, turn, check the map again. I do love that on the map, it shows you what direction you're pointing. That helps a ton. It's not like Dino Crisis, you know what I mean? Where Dino Crisis just shows you the room that you're in.
Dude, I forgot about how bad that map is.
that was my first thought. I hit the triangle button for the map. Everything is labeled. It tells you what doors are locked. Everything, the map is updating constantly. Shows you on like everything we've complained about with maps through this entire show. This game fixes all of it, and this is probably the best map we've ever had in a game.
I was gonna say, I wouldn't be surprised if this map inspired other game maps, because if it's kind of like the first to be this good, I don't know if you're saying it's the first of its kind, but the first to be this good, a lot of other games still today kind of look just like this. You hit pause, and it shows where you are, hopefully where you're facing, if you're not just like a little dot, and then you take it from there.
I mean, it's definitely the best by far that we've played, and I would probably go as far as saying it's probably the best horror map on the PS1. Like,
oh wow,
we haven't played Resident Evil yet, but I don't know. As far as anything other than Resident Evil and Silent Hill, to me, is under these, so it's probably not as good. I mean, we played Alone in the Dark, and that map was the same as Dino Crisis, where it didn't show you exactly where you were, which is annoying, especially when you're expected to, check doors and explore. But yeah, I'm out of my notes. Unless you guys got anything else, we can kind of move on here. We didn't really talk about the boss fight, which is kind of like whatever.
I think that's why we haven't talked about it, because like Jay said, or someone said, or Kyle said it, I got through that fight, no effort, just blasted the lizard man a few times, and then he opens his mouth, shoot him twice, done. I moved on. There was nothing to it.
Yeah, I was genuinely surprised. I mean, I'm assuming it's because we were on easy, but like how quick he died once his mouth opened. Like it was like 2 or 3 shots and he was dead.
I think it was a one shot with the shotgun, right? Or at least even on normal it was maybe, but I don't know.
I don't think it was one shot, but I did use the shotgun. I don't know.
Kyle, were you on normal? Do you remember?
It was 2 shots for me.
2 shots? Maybe it was 2.
So regardless, it's just an easy boss then. Yeah.
Yeah, cake. I mean, I didn't take a lick of damage, just not even because I was good, just because easy.
I will say, I think for once, the easy mode was too easy. Now knowing this information I have, I think probably Jimmy and I maybe would have had a better experience going into normal.
Definitely would have been scarier.
Yeah, because coming from Dino Crisis, I was like, okay, we played a survival horror. I know what to do now. I understand all my mistakes from that game. I was conserving ammo, using melee weapons. But then, like Jimmy said, I look and I have 200 ammo for the handgun. I'm like, okay, I have all these healing supplies. So using my gun was never a problem because I was always maxing out my ammo. And that's when I realized, maybe we should have done this on normal, because they're just holding your hand at this point with easy.
I mean, even Dino Crisis, we played it on easy as well. And that was harder than this. Like I still had to think about when I used my items.
Yep.
With this, I had so much stuff all the time. Like I appreciate that an easy mode exists. And like, obviously you guys know why we picked it, but I agree with you that normal is the way to go. The tension is still there for sure. I mean, you still get scared, but knowing that you have enough ammo to kill anything that would ever come at you, even if there was 5 of whatever, you'd still have enough ammo to kill them all. Like it does take away from it.
Yep.
All right. Well, then with that, we can go ahead and read these reviews and then get to our scores. No surprise, this received crazy good reviews at the time. I mean, this game and this series is legendary. I mean, the later games sucked other than PT, but the first initial run of these games was all insanely good. The lowest review that I could find, period, was from Computer and Video Games Magazine, who gave it a 3 out of 5, which is still not that bad, but they said, "There's no doubt that this is a good game and we recommend you try it. But when you compare it to Resident Evil as we have throughout this review, and as Konami has by billing it as a horror game, it simply doesn't cut the mustard. Some people will find some enjoyment in this game, but as there isn't much to do or kill here, I'm afraid it leaves you rather unfulfilled."
I can't get over the fact that they said cut the
Cut
mustard.
the mustard, bro. The fuck?
What the fuck does that mean?
These guys shouldn't
I don't know,
be allowed
dude.
to review. Yeah, throw it in the trash. Bad review. Cut the mustard. You kidding me?
I mean, like, if you're going into it thinking it's going to be a more action-leaning horror game like Resident Evil, I can see why you would feel this way. But you have to review the game for what it is, not for what it's not trying to be.
Exactly. It just sounds like they wanted more enemies.
I feel like people want this game to be Resident Evil, and that's not what they're trying to do. Because I see a lot of comparisons and stuff because like they're both horror games, and I get it, but it's like they're not the same.
Well, this was like, Konami's like, we're going to go up against Resident Evil with this, and it's not that at all. There were a lot of 10 out of 10 reviews. I chose this one from German magazine Fun Generation, and they said, "Silent Hill is pure ambience. It sticks to the chosen course at every second and remains true to the Hollywood style from start to finish." And that's why I love the game.
Yeah.
All right, so that brings us to our scores. Who wants to go first? I don't want to go first this time.
I'll go first.
Yeah, Jay, we'll allow you to go first this time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
you're only going first.
No,
'cause
no,
I'm allowing
I
you.
know,
Me
I've-
personally.
no, I've elected this. I've earned this. I've earned this. And I worked my way in here, and you let me do it because I'm powerful. I'm good at what I do. This game, I don't know. I think even for like a modern horror game, it checks all the boxes. So I don't know what else I could say about it that I haven't already said. Like even the bad parts of this game add to it. And so I don't know are we allowed to change our scores later if we need to?
Yeah, you can change your score whenever you want.
9 out of 10.
Wow.
Nice.
I guess I'll go next.
It could be a 10 someday. I need to play more PS1 game.
That's what we do. Like as we play more, like you see, like, oh, maybe this game didn't suck as much as I thought.
Yeah.
So, from the very beginning, I was stressed. And whenever I started to get used to the environment, then it went dark on me, got stressed again. When I got used to that, then it went even darker to the evil side, and I got stressed. Like, as I said, they went for suspense, they went for tension, they nailed it. I was going to knock it for the camera, but now I learned that you can change the camera, so that kind of helps the score. Everything else, there are just minor inconveniences. The puzzles, I wish they weren't so vague. But really, I think that's one of the only things holding it back. And I was also thinking to go about 8.5 or 9. And I think hearing that it is repetitive down the road with what you're doing, I'm going to go with an 8.5.
So for me, I think I share a lot of the same points as you, Mike, where the puzzles being vague is a knock for me because I hate puzzles in games, dude. Especially when you can't figure it out on your own. I know that you guys did, but it's just for me, I'm bad at it. So I need my handheld through puzzles. But I think with it being repetitive, with it, half the game being like checking door simulator, I think I'm still going to give it a high score for everything else. Like I said, the ambience, everything is perfect. So I'm going to go with an 8.5 as well.
Nice.
I gotta say, I love this game. I haven't even beaten it yet, but like just from what I've played, like the ambience was a really huge part of it for me. I love the scene that they set. Soundtrack is great. Even the things like the complaints that I have about the game, like I don't feel like it's that detrimental to the game to where it would drop my score, significantly. So I kind of bounced around a little bit, but I think I'm going to end up at a 9. Great game, really good for its time, super spooky. That's it. Short and sweet, baby.
Yeah, so that's going to put us at an 8.75, which ties us for third place with Tony Hawk 1.
Oh, this is a tough
Tony
one.
Hawk.
That's pretty fair actually, because the replayability of Tony Hawk is, I think, more so than this game, and that's a discussion worth having.
Well, this is the part of the show that's hard, is we have to pick which one's better. Tony Hawk 1 or Silent Hill?
I played only the other Tony Hawk, so you guys might be the only ones to weigh in. But the replayability, I know it's there. I played like 3 through like everything after.
See, I would kind of disagree with Jay on that, where I think the replayability on Tony Hawk isn't there. And opposed to this, where we didn't even mention this has 5 different endings that you can get.
Damn.
Yeah, you have to beat this game a bunch to get all the endings.
Yeah.
All right, I'll eat my words.
And there's pretty much like a new game plus where the house next to the doghouse, after you beat it a couple times, that one locked door is now unlocked and there's a katana inside. So now you have a stronger weapon to go through the rest of the game.
Yeah, you can get a chainsaw as well in that mode.
Bro.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So I feel like because of that, like with Tony Hawk, we talked about this before a couple episodes ago. You beat it once and now you just do it again with a new character, but nothing ever truly changes. Where I think this has so much replayability to keep maybe getting better, try to figure out the other endings. So I would think that this is better than Tony Hawk 1.
I agree with you. I mean, I 100% did Tony Hawk 1 as a single character in about an hour. And for me, I was done with it after that. Like, as a kid, I went back to it later, but Tony Hawk 1 is just, it's an amazing game, but it's just nothing compared to this. Like, this to me is a whole other experience. Yeah, Tony Hawk 1 is an arcade style game, so it's hard to compare the two. But for me, I would gravitate more towards an experience like this over Tony Hawk. So
I agree. So that will put Silent Hill at number 3. So our top 3 2 horror games. Well, horror themed.
yeah, so right now we have Soul Edge at number 1, Symphony of the Night number 2, and Silent Hill coming in at number 3. All right, well, that's going to do it for us. Thank you so much for watching or listening. If you enjoyed this, please remember to like and subscribe, as well as give us a rating on podcast services. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye,
No, shut up. That's my thing.
No. Bye, everyone. I get the last word. Goodbye.